Hello grade 7s, this is Mr. Ueda. Welcome to the Best Graph Activity video tutorial. Alright, let's begin. Let's open Microsoft Excel. Make sure you have the Best Graph Activity sheet in front of you because that sheet provides all of the data that we need. Alright, in cell A1, let's type in the title of this assignment, the Best Graph Activity. Please make sure that you have capitalized each word, the best graph activity. Let's click out of that cell and let's do an immediate or an initial save. So let's go up to the Microsoft Office button and let's go to Save As. Excel Workbook would be fine. Down the left-hand side, please look for your student number. Okay, click on your student number. And then under file name, type in the best graph activity and hit save. All right, first thing we want to do is we want to reduce the size of column A. So let's position our mouse between column A and column B. Let's get the double arrows. Let's click, hold the button down and drag it to the left. Let's make that column very skinny. And let's do the same for column B. Let's place our mouse between column B and C to get the double black arrows. Click and hold your mouse button and drag to the left. All right, cell C3 is always reserved for your name. So click in cell C3 and type by first name, last name, and your class, please. Cell C5 is usually where we start our data. So in cell C5, click and type in data set 1. And looking at your best graph activity worksheet, data set 1 is sales figures for Gobbler Sweets. Probably much easier to just read it off of your worksheet than to look at the screen. All right, let's click in cell C6. Our first row heading is year, and then hit enter so that it drops down to the next cell below in cell C7. Type in sales in millions. Now you'll see that because that row heading is quite long, it actually extends past that cell. So we need to increase the size of column C. So let's place our mouse up here. Let's actually first click out of that cell. Let's position our mouse between columns C and D to get the double black arrows. And this time we're not going to reduce the size of the column. We're going to increase the size of the column. So let's click and hold and drag to the right. Let's give ourselves lots of room. Okay, the rest is simply just typing in the information you see on your worksheet. So in cell D6, let's type in 1992. And then I want you to hit the Tab key on your keyboard so that it will jump over to the next cell. Remember, in a spreadsheet, we only want to put in one piece of information in each cell. So then type in 1993 and then hit Tab, 1994, and I want you to continue getting all the years until 1998. Make sure you hit Tab between each cell. Now, if you need to slow down, press pause so that you can catch up. And then I want you to do the same thing for the sales in millions row. So we're going to start in D7, and I want you to type in all of those figures. Hit Tab after each one. And again, if you need to slow it down, just press pause so that you can catch up. All right, let's do something with this data table. Let's make it stand out. So let's start in cell C6. Click and hold your mouse, and I want you to drag downwards and to the right until you get to cell J7, and then let go. It's very important that you don't include any other cells. For example, I don't want you highlighting any more cells that are empty. So if you've made a mistake, just click outside of that area and start again. Start in cell C6, click and hold the mouse and drag down and to the right and then let go. Okay, so let's find in the top toolbar this button right here. It is the border button. Okay, so let's click the down arrow so that we get a whole menu of borders. Let's go all the way down to more borders. And you should get format cells. Now, if it's not on the border tab, make sure you click on the border tab, but it should automatically go to the border tab. Let's set the outline first. Now, the outline should always be the thickest, boldest line. So let's click on the thickest, boldest line and then click outline here under the presets, outline. And you'll see here in the preview window, you'll see that thick border. So now let's set the inside. Let's click on a thin line and then click on the inside button. And you'll see in the preview here, we got a nice thin line on the inside. So let's click OK. Let's click out of that area to see what we've created. That looks very nice. Okay, so let's highlight now from cell D6. Click and hold the mouse button down to cell J7 and then let go. So you've highlighted all of these cells, and let's look for the center button in the alignment area, the center button, and click center. Okay, there we go. Our data table is ready to go. Okay, so let's do the really exciting part in creating the graphs. We're going to create 3 different types of graphs: a line graph, a bar graph, and a circle graph. So in cell C9, I just want you to click on cell C9. And then from the top pull-down menus, let's click on Insert. Now it's very important that you have nothing else selected here. That's why I asked you to click in cell C9. All right, so in the charts area, I want you to click on Line. And then we're going to choose this type of line graph. It is a line graph with markers. Okay, when you put your mouse over it, it'll show you what it is. So if I rest my mouse, it says line with markers. So I'm going to click on that. And then for chart layouts, you see here we have a number of chart layouts. I'm just going to click the third one over. Okay, chart layouts, the third one over. Now you see that nothing has appeared here. That's okay. It's supposed to look like that. We haven't told Microsoft Excel what type of data we want. So let's right click in the center of this chart area. Right click. And we should have this pop-up window. So let's go down to Select Data. Okay, so this is the most important part of creating a graph out of a chart. All right, you should get this window popping up. Select Data Source. So the first thing we want to do is we want to tell the computer what the y-axis is going to be. The y-axis is going to be these sales figures. So it's very important that you highlight this row of data without highlighting sales in millions. So I'm going to start in cell D7 and I'm going to drag across to cell J7. And then I'm going to let go. Okay? So if I move this, you should see now on the y-axis that we've got a nice vertical axis. But you'll see on the x-axis, this is not correct. We have numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's not correct. So let's go back to this screen, the Select Data Source. Under Horizontal Axis Labels, let's click Edit. Okay? Then what I want to do is, I want to tell it what the x-axis is going to be, and it's going to be the year. So it's very important that you don't highlight the word year. You start in cell D6 and you highlight across to cell J6 and then let go. And then let's click OK. So you should see here now the years at the bottom. So we've got our sales figures on the y-axis and we have our years on the x-axis. So we don't need this screen anymore, so let's click OK. All right, so below the graph, we have this little kind of legend here. So let's click on it, and then let's hit delete. Okay. All right, for chart title, let's double click in it, and let's replace chart title with our actual title, which is Sales Figures for Gobbler Sweets. Make sure it's capitalized. And then what I want you to do is I want you to highlight that title. From the top pull down menu, let's go back to the home menu. Let's decrease the size of that title to 14, and let's underline the title. Okay. Now, back to the pull down menus. Let's go all the way across to layout. Let's click on layout, and let's find axis titles. So I'm going to click on axis titles, and the first thing I want to do is primary horizontal axis title, and I want to click on title below axis. You'll see it appear here below our graph, and then I just want you to type in year. You'll see the text window is here. You won't see it immediately here, but when you type in year and then hit enter, it will replace it. Now let's go back up to axis titles, and let's do the vertical axis title, and let's choose a rotated title. You'll see it here, but you're actually going to be typing in here. So I'm going to type in sales, and I'm going to go bracket millions, sales millions. Or you could have typed sales in millions. It doesn't matter. And then hit enter. Okay. Let's click out of that chart area and have a look at our completed graph. All right, so there's one more thing I want you to do. I'm going to click back on the graph, and then you should still be in the layout menu, and I want you to look for grid lines. Grid lines. I'm going to click on grid lines, and what I want are primary vertical grid lines. Actually, I want primary horizontal grid lines, and I want to choose minor grid lines. I apologize. I'm going to go back. Primary horizontal grid lines, and I'm going to choose minor grid lines. Okay, that's not what I wanted. I apologize. So I'm going to go back to major grid lines for horizontal grid lines. I was right in the first time. I apologize. Let's go to primary vertical grid lines, and let's choose minor grid lines. Sorry for the confusion. All right, much easier to read the data when we have these vertical line markers here. Okay, so there's our line graph. So what I want you to do is I want you to position your mouse in the corner, one of the corners, and you'll get that diagonal white arrow. And what I want to do is I just want to reduce the size of that graph because we're going to have to fit 3 graphs for each data set. So I want you to move your graph over, and I want you to move it over as far left as you can. Okay? All right, so let's go on now to creating the next type of graph. So I want to click off of that first graph, and we're going to repeat all of our steps. So let's go to Insert. This time let's go to Column, what we call a bar graph. Let's choose the simplest 2D column. And again, I want to choose the third layout in chart layout. So I'm going to click on the third layout 3. All right, so this is going to be a repeat. So let's see if how much we remember. So let's right click on our chart area, and let's choose Select Data. First thing I have to tell Microsoft Excel is what do I want the y-axis to be? So I want to click here. I want to highlight from cell D7 to J7. And then now you'll see the y-axis is set. The y-axis scale is set. Now, again, the horizontal axis is set to a default 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's change that. So under horizontal axis labels, let's click on Edit. And then I want you to highlight from 1992 to 1998. Do not highlight the year. So I want you to start in cell D6 and go across to cell J6. And you'll see the years appear now, so let's click OK. Everything is set, so let's click OK. All right, same thing we did with the line graph. We have the little legend down here. Let's click on it and then hit delete. Let's double click on our chart title and let's replace it with our title, which is Sales Figures for Gobbler Sweets. Let's highlight our title. Let's go back to the top pull-down menu to the Home menu. Let's decrease the size of the font to 14. We want them all looking similar. And let's underline it as well. Okay. From the top pull-down menu, let's go to the Layout menu. Let's go to Axis Titles. Primary horizontal axis title, title below axis. Just like in our last one, we're going to type in year and hit enter. And we're going to go back to axis titles. Vertical axis title, we'll choose a rotated title. And let's type in sales bracket millions or sales in millions. Let's keep it consistent for every graph. And hit enter. Okay. In the bottom right hand corner, we might have to click outside of the graph. Maybe not. I'm going to click outside of the graph and I'm going to click back into the graph and I should get that diagonal double white pointed arrow, and I just want to reduce the size and I just want to move it so that it appears next to our first one. Try to have it a consistent size. Okay, so we've got 2 of the graphs done. Now there's one more thing we could have done that we did on the line graph, is that we could have gone grid lines, vertical grid lines, minor grid lines, but it's not really as important in a bar graph because a bar graph is much easier to read. So I can take those grid lines off and I can just choose none. Okay? It's nice to have these horizontal ones, isn't it? It makes reading the graph much easier. Okay, we've got one more graph to go. So let's click on an empty area, okay, on an empty cell. Let's go back to the Insert pull-down menu, and now let's do a pie graph. And let's choose a 2D pie graph. And under chart layouts, we're going to choose the first layout, layout 1. Okay. Don't worry if it's overlapping the other ones. We're going to move it eventually. All right, let's see how much you remember. Let's right click in that chart area and go to Select Data. Again, we have to tell it what the y-axis would be. Now I know in a pie graph there is really no y-axis and x-axis, but we just repeat our steps. So the first thing we have to do is we have to start in cell D7, highlight across to cell J7, and then under horizontal axis labels, let's click Edit, and let's highlight from cell D6 all the way to J6, and then let go, and then click OK. Everything is good. Let's click OK. Let's double click on the chart title. Let's replace it with our title, Sales Figures for Gobbler Sweets. Let's highlight that title, go up to the main menu, go to Home, change the font size to 14, and let's underline it as well. I'm going to reduce the size of this graph, try to make it consistent with the others, and I'm actually going to place it down here below. I don't want to have too much space in between because space is really at a premium because we want to be able to print this out. Okay. So from the top pull-down menu, let's click Page Layout. You know what? We haven't saved in a long time. So let's hit Save. All right, so let's go to Page Layout. Under Orientation, I want you to choose Landscape. Then under Margins, let's click Margins. I want you to choose the narrowest setting. So we're going to click Narrow. Okay. All right. So somewhere down here, I want you to click on an empty cell, and I want you to type in which graph is best suited for this data set. Why? And I want you to answer this in a very brief paragraph or a few sentences below. All right, we can leave that for a bit. So let's go all the way to the top. Let's click in cell A1 where the main title is. I want you to make sure you're back on the home menu. Let's increase the font to 14. Let's bold it. Let's underline it. In cell C3 where our name is, let's increase the size of the font to 12. And let's make it italics. And in cell C5, let's bold data set 1, sales figures for Gobbler Sweets. All right, let's save. All right, so when we set all our margins and we made it landscape, we should have the grid lines here to show us the edge of the page. So it's very important that you don't have any bits hanging off the page. So in my case, I have my bar graph hanging off the page here. So what I want to do is I want to do some fine adjusting by just moving some things over a little bit. You can adjust things, their position of things, or the size of things. Okay? So what I want you to do is I want you to make sure that everything fits within the page. Now there's a little bit of lag here because I'm recording, so I apologize for that. It's not as crisp in my movements as I would like it. But once you've got everything fit on, to fit on one page, you see now I'm clear, right? This grid line is now unbroken. Nothing is crossing over it. So once you've answered this question here in this area, then I want you to start right here, right under the grid line, and I want you to treat this cell, which is for me actually cell A35, I want you to treat it as A1 for the next data set. Okay? You're going to do it exactly the same way with the main title here. You're going to skip 2 cells and then you're going to type in your name. And then you're going to start here with data set 2. Okay? So make sure you're saving as you go. You can call me over if you need any assistance, but you're going to complete the 3 graphs for dataset 2 and dataset 3. All right, good luck. Thanks for watching. Bye.